Hey out there, and welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. First of all, I'm really excited to be back because this is my first webinar of 2023. So I hope you're all having a great year, a great day, and thrilled to have you here with us. I am joined by Sabrina Hips and Jeremy Rivera of CopyPress, and today we are going to be talking about how to predict your SEO success in this 5-step formula to help you win, and they're going to share it with you today. So let's get to it. My name is Heather. I'm going to be your moderator today. Please use hashtag SEJ webinars to share any cool tidbits from today's learning on social, and let's meet our guests. Sabrina, Jeremy, it's nice to have you here with us. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and CopyPress?
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. We're excited to be here. This is also my first webinar of 2023 as well, so very exciting. I am the VP of Partner Development here at CopyPress. I've been with CopyPress for 2 years. We focus on content marketing and growing organic traffic, and we're really excited to share with you some tips that work internally for us that you can apply to your business.
I'm Jeremy Rivera. I'm a long-term SEO and joined CopyPress last year to help with their content analysis program, creating special software to help our customers be more effective in their SEO campaigns. So I'm happy to share these tips. There's very specific things in this deck for you to do. It's less of a bigger picture, and they're very actionable, specific things to do to come out with at the end, and a handy dandy handout that will help you fill that information automagically, so you don't have to mess around with Google Sheets and formulas to get things to calculate. So everything's all tied together so that at the end of the day, you're going to have something you can walk away with.
All right, well, I'm not going to take too much time on housekeeping because now everybody's like, okay, just show me the tools. So real quick, if you experience any technical difficulties, use the chat box to let us know. There are separate tabs for questions and chat. Just take a second to get familiar with those. You can upvote any questions. If you see something you like, give it that little thumbs up, and we'll answer as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. There is closed captioning. It's the little CC in the top right corner. So if you need that, give that button a click. We will do our best to link to any resources or tools in the chat. But like we said, we've got the handouts tab, and you will get any resources in your recap email as well. After the webinar, we ask if you can stick around for a short survey. It takes about 2 minutes, and it just helps us gauge what works and how we can make these webinars more useful for you all out there. And lastly, you will receive today's recording of this webinar later in your inbox, so watch for that. And like I said, that's enough for me. Let's get to it. Sabrina, Jeremy, it's all yours. I'll see you guys at the Q&A.
All right. So the biggest question about SEO is, am I going to make money on this? Is this going to be worth the time to implement it? Sabrina, what are some causes and reasons you explore when you're talking about the value of an SEO campaign and thinking about that return on investment?
Yeah, of course, Jeremy. One of the biggest is just making sure we have a way to justify that budget. So oftentimes content marketing is handled by 1 or 2 folks at a company, or you're outsourcing and going to an agency, and you need to convince the powers that be, convince your clients, and potentially convince yourself that this investment in content marketing and keyword research is going to yield some results. So that's definitely for sure one of the biggest ones.
I think the biggest thing to do is think of SEO and this data as business intelligence, BI, thinking about this marketplace. It used to be in the 70s, you'd have to, do all these surveys to guess, hey, what is the level of interest in this product or service? The data is there. We are so fortunate to live in a data age where Google is not only providing this search, but is providing search data through its API to let us know how many people a month are searching for this term or phrase. And there's tons of useful SEO tools out there that aggregate and correlate that data together so you can get a picture of your marketplace before you start. So there is kind of a forecasting process where you as a individual, as a marketing team member, as a freelancer, as an agency, you can do this for any client or any business. You can forecast what is the potential of your particular service or product, either for a single product or for your whole scope of products. So these are the 5 steps. 1, determine your keyword universe. Find all of the keywords you can that are relevant to your product or service. The second is gather that traffic data and search volume information. Third is determine your conversion rate for your site. How do people turn from visitors clicking onto your site into customers? Fourth, what is the information about that process? How many of those leads turn into sales? And fifth, once you do the basic calculations off of those numbers, how to leaven that and understand what is a good, reasonable forecast. Because you can get all of those numbers and get super excited and shoot for the moon, but what is a way to leaven that and approach the numbers reasonably? Here's a bit of the math behind it. So you're going to find your set of keywords, and that's going to give you your search volume. You're going to multiply that search volume by an organic click-through rate. Your organic click-through rate will get multiplied by your conversion rate, and then you're going to multiply by a sale rate, and then multiply that by a revenue per sale. So each of these cells has its own formula in between it, kind of calculating, okay, this is a particular keyword, stretching therapist, 2,400. Out of that, how much traffic could I get? Out of that, how many conversions does that mean? Out of those conversions, how many sales, and how much money does that represent for that one particular keyword in that one keyword position? So the sheet at the end, the handout will have those formulas auto-calculated for you. So this gives you an actual picture, an actual number where you can justify the expenses of your campaign. I'm not going to go in depth into all of the different ways you can spend money on SEO. You can build fantastic content. You can work on outreach and building links. You can hire someone to do technical SEO and fix technical SEO problems. You can train up your teams to write better on SEO. In many ways, you can integrate SEO tactics, but we're going to be focusing on the projection of your potential so that you have that number, and then you can figure out, okay, well, based off of that, how can I justify an SEO budget, and what can I scale that to, and what can I expect? Which leads us to the first poll of, have you ever tried to forecast the outcome of an SEO campaign? Yes, I've done so before. Yes, but I'm not sure about my results. Were they accurate or not yet?
So I just launched that poll. If it doesn't pop out for you, it should be under the polls tab. And Sabrina, I think you can see those as well. But so far we have about 80% coming in saying not yet.
Okay, cool. So we got a bunch of people who haven't yet taken this process. Exciting to know. All of you have a lot of fun math ahead. No, it's actually a really fun thing. The first
making it sound fun, but Jeremy did the hard work with that handout, so it is fun when you get to use Jeremy's hard work. He did the fun part for us. We just get to see the great results.
So the thing you have to ask yourself is, what would you say you do here? You have to determine all of the keywords and phrases that get used when describing your product, and kind of go beyond just your jargon. There's a lot of cases where you've got industry terms and terminology. You need to break out beyond just the people that you talk to, and actually talk to your clients and customers. There's a lot of expansion of this that doesn't start in keyword tools. I'll get to those in a minute, but your first step in determining your relevant keywords is talking to people. So what are some interesting ways that you've discovered keywords that are relevant with our clients?
Yeah, of course. So talking to people is huge, and it might not be at the top of everyone's list, just like math is not at the top of my list, but it is so important and can provide a lot more insight. So checking in with your customer support team. So if you have an IT team that's getting tickets, see where those pain points are for your customers and clients. See where there are some challenges and some struggles. Listen to sales calls. So this is what I do on a daily basis, is get an opportunity to talk to prospective clients and share more about CopyPress. It is so eye-opening to see the types of challenges and struggles that people have with their SEO, especially if you don't have an SEO background. You can find out some terms and phrases that people might be searching for that are a lot different than internal jargon that we might use in the SEO world. So don't discount the fact that you know the correct term for something. Someone may describe it differently, and you're missing out on opportunities. So whether that be SEO or whatever industry or vertical you're in, be aware that there's internal jargon and there's also external jargon, the way people explain it and wonder and Google it. And then also, super important, connect with your customers, talk to them, ask them. So make it less transactional and make it more of a conversation. Find out what they think, what they feel, especially past customers, because you can find pain points and there may be huge areas of opportunity to capitalize on that.
So one really good example of that disconnect is if you're an HVAC professional, they'll say that they do HVAC, but 9 times out of 10, you just want your air conditioning fixed. I want my heating fixed. You're not thinking, oh, I need an HVAC guy. It's not an acronym you're usually comfortable with. So there's a lot of people for you to, if you're at an existing organization internally or an agency, these are all of the people that you want to go and talk to and make notes and gather and add this to an Excel sheet. So before you start everything, open your keyword Excel sheet and make a tab that says, from customer service team or from the sales team or from customer, and start collating these keywords together. What are those recurring terms, phrases, questions, challenges, and check your, if you are have a sales team, look at those support tickets, you can look at transcripts. There's tools now that transcribe sales calls. So there's so many great resources from the human side to gather keyword information. But that doesn't mean there isn't a wide world of SEO tools and data that's available to you. So there's 3 buckets to look at. The first is looking at your own current website performance. So go into your Google Search Console. If you don't know what that is, then Google it and set up your Google Search Console. And that's going to show you your organic performance, what keywords and queries you currently show up for. You're going to want to set that to at least the last 12 months and export that to Google Sheets and then sort that by clicks. The second group of keywords, you can do this manually just with Google itself. So you don't need a special SEO tool for this, but you can look at one specific keyword, let's say Nashville HVAC, look at the top 10 URLs for that particular keyword, and then you're going to find out what are the top 100 keywords for that particular URL. So you can use any keyword tool out there. There's keywords everywhere. SEMrush, Ahrefs, SERPstat. There are dozens of tools that can give you basic data on how a particular URL is doing. Then you can also use specific tools from bigger players like SEMrush and Ahrefs. SEMrush has Keyword Magic tool. You'll input a term or phrase. It'll suggest a bunch of variations. Ahrefs has its Keyword Explorer. We have a free tool called Content Analysis on copypress.com. Just click on Content Analysis in the top navigation, and we'll give you your own rankings as well as your competitors' current rankings. And those will give you ideas, those kind of keyword gap analysis, comparing your site to others. You want to download those keywords and export them into that same sheet, and then start to collate those data points together. Because once you get past those keywords, you're going to start filtering them. Once you get them into a sheet, not every keyword is as equally valuable. Do you have any experience with thinking through these keywords of whether they're ready to buy or not?
Yeah, of course. And not just ready to buy, but how relevant and important it's going to be to your customer, and also, the conversion rate of them. So we have a lot of clients that are in the auto industry, and depending on what service they're selling, whether it be an ODB scanner or if they sell car subscription services, what they are looking for, there might be a very, very large keyword universe when you're talking about auto, but you have to go in there and scrub it. And this is where expertise within your industry, the people element, comes in so much handy, because you can't clean for that. You can't scrub for that solely from a third-party site. You really have to apply some expertise and knowledge in it. So that is something we do here at CopyPress. I've personally done it. I feel like I am now jack of all trades with different industries, but getting in the insight of what keyword is really going to produce the highest conversion, so important. Thanks, Jeremy. That was a great question.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from Google Search Console, where you had a picture of Jack Skellington in one of your posts, and it ranked really well, but you don't sell anything related to that. So that can lead to these false positives. Or if there's a term that has a lot of volume, like Google Sheets, you ranked on number 5 for it. It shows up in your list, but it's going to skew your results. You're never going to rank number 1 or on the first page for Google Sheets or Kanye West or any of those big popular terms or phrases. So you want to filter out those unrealistic ones. You want to filter out those non sequiturs. I find that it's very useful to send your keywords at this point to your client, if you're an agency, and have them do a 1 to 5 scale of how close they are to converting. So that can really help give you a signal that 1 is not related at all, 5, they're ready to buy today.
Another poll. So who is in charge of your SEO campaigns? Are you managing all your campaigns yourself? Do you have an internal employee or a team of experts? Do you use a third party or an agency, or no one in particular, just picking up pieces here or there?
Looks like those are starting to come through. And one more time, if that didn't pop out for you, you can find it under the polls tab. But okay, here we go. So 67% say I manage all SEO campaigns by myself. So a lot of self-managers on here.
Awesome. So yeah, this is the time where this is definitely actionable, thinking about those keyword lists, pumping it into that Google Sheet or Excel, and starting the process. So once you have that keyword data, the set of keywords, you do need to go to a tool to get search volume. Possibly, additionally, if you can get the data at the same time, the cost per click for that particular search query is useful to grab. If you have keyword difficulty or any additional metrics for that particular term or phrase, you might as well grab that at that same time. I've kind of done our calculations based off of search volume. Cost per click is only useful as a kind of gut check or a reference for how valuable or for how much people are willing to spend on that particular term or phrase. There are some tools out there that try to show you what is the value of SEO by multiplying that keyword volume by your cost per click data. The problem with that is that it's a little bit deceptive. For one, that is a monthly search volume for that entire phrase. And so if you're multiplying that whole thing, that's kind of a marketplace suggestion versus your particular result could get this much traffic. The other part is that that cost for that pay-per-click is an estimate. You control that slider. You can make more effective ads or less effective ads. You can bid higher or lower. So anytime there's that, that number there for cost per click, it's kind of an estimate. Pay-per-click clicks behave differently than organic. 80% or so of people know that is a paid ad and are clicking on it because they know it's a paid ad versus an organic result, which they know is not. So behavior is different. They might be further down the funnel and more ready to buy. And it only represents the cost of that one click, not how much you could make from that. So it's not really good for forecasting that particular value. PPC is not SEO. You can pay for as much traffic. What you do for SEO, is a longer term investment. So we're not going to forecast based off of that pay-per-click data, but it is useful to have just for reference to see, someone's willing to pay $50 per click for that phrase versus a suggested pay-per-click of $1 per phrase. It can kind of give you an estimate. Keep in mind that the data that is provided by SEMrush, Ahrefs, SERPstat, any of the dozen other tools out there that are available, you can go right to one of the vendors' data for SEO and pull it through API. But it is a monthly average, so it doesn't have seasonality included. So if you're searching for search volume in January for Santa Claus, Christmas, those volumes and metrics are going to be different from what you can expect in the Christmas season. So you need to look at your industry and you probably know or should know when your product or service is most popular in the year. There are products and services that are immune from this, but those that do have a seasonality really need to keep that in mind while you're doing this keyword research process. And the other aspect of this is keep in mind that there is going to be some trouble with quantifying attribution. Okay, so let's say that a radio ad plays and it says, go down to your local JoJo Mart. There's going to be a burst of organic activity of people like, I need to go to JoJo Mart. They're going to type in that brand. They're going to type that in. And so there might be other marketing efforts that have kind of spillover effect on your organic performance. So keep that in mind. So let's talk about that changing that search volume number into something useful. Just because 2,400 people search for volunteer opportunities in Huntsville doesn't mean that your number one ranking is going to get 2,400 searches. It's a fraction. So if it's a commercial term, it's something like 28%. If it's informational, that number one spot represents 23%. If somebody's trying to get somewhere, they need directions. Well, 35% click on that first result because that's that they want to go there. And then if it's transactional, it's again similar to informational. But the spread of these organic click-through rates is different. And these are percentages, 28.32, et cetera. You can use these as good stand-ins. This is from Advanced Web Rankings, does a live, continuously updated CTR study that they publish and update on a regular basis that kind of gives you these starting points.
What's really insightful too, Jeremy, is how quickly you start decreasing in terms of how much market share you're going to get. So like you said, 2,400 for the total search volume, you need to be mindful and cognizant that if you are not ranking in the top 1, 2, 3, it's going to decrease. And if you're not factoring those in, you're going to have a really inflated return on investment, which might look nice, but if it's not realistic and doesn't come to fruition, I don't think you're going to get your budget next year for SEO.
Yeah, we'll talk about salt and seasoning your expectations, but this is a big part of it, of looking at that overall search volume for that keyword and knowing that only 1% of that one specific keyword is going to send to it. That's why the old chestnut, I want to rank number 1 for this one phrase and then I'll win. That's suicide. You need a universe. You need a bigger picture. You need a gamut of keywords because you're not going to be number 1 for all of them, buddy. I'm sorry. There's no website out there that ranks number one for every single keyword.
Not
So,
even Wikipedia. So
not
yeah.
even Wikipedia. So once we have that search volume number, then we're going to multiply it by that reasonable organic click-through rate number. That's going to give you a guesstimate, again, a guesstimate of potential traffic. So you can take that number 1 spot or that number 10 spot and say, oh, if I were number 1, I could get this much. If I were number 10, I could get this. In the sheet, I kind of did a top of page and took the average click-through rate for the top 3, and then the average click-through rate for the bottom of the page, just to give you A versus B, I'm good versus I'm at the bottom, versus not on there at all. But this is a good way to kind of gauge for a particular keyword, how much traffic could that potentially mean for us? Now, I showed you third-party data that said, here's what are your organic click-through rates. If you have been collecting Google Search Console data for long enough, for at least 3 months, you can get your own custom organic click-through rate table. So if you go into Google Search Console, set to the last 3 months worth of data, and download it, you can collate together anything that was in position 1.1 to 1.9, because Google gives you positional data. It doesn't give you a specific ranking, because a lot of times you're in the number 1 spot, but you might be 2 or 3 or 4 sometimes during the day based off of location. So if you just use that range, you can get your site's specific custom organic CTR, which can be very different based off of your niche, based off of your brand strength. You want to exclude your brand terms and phrases because they're going to skew your results, because people who are familiar with your brand are going to bias towards actually clicking through it. So remove branded phrases. Should have said that first. And then, because branding is amazing, everybody should be trying to, build their brand awareness, and this is an example that shows it. But for our purposes here, to create your own custom CTR, you want to exclude your brand phrases. So let's talk about conversion, because that's the next step. You've got a guesstimate of, you've got your search volume, your keywords, and an estimate of your traffic. There's a difference, though, between somebody visiting your site and making a purchase, right? When it comes to this particular exercise, it's very different for a lead generation based site versus an e-commerce site. And you have to decide right here. If you run an e-commerce site, is a purchase a conversion, or is an add to cart a conversion? Because if you consider that transaction, that purchase as your conversion point, it's not as complicated. Because in lead generation, not everybody that submits a form or becomes a lead becomes a sale, right, Sabrina?
Oh, I wish in my dreams, but no, that's true. We do. Not every single person is going to convert with lead generation. So
hopefully you guys have your Google Analytics or analytics package or whatever you're using, tracking how many people on your site submit a form, make a call. There's call tracking software that tracks those leads, submits a download something. So those leads are different from an e-commerce purchase. So just keep that in mind for the next step.
Another poll: how do you convert your website visitors to take specific actions? Is it directly via an e-commerce platform, routinely following up with leads like emails and calls, through offline channels, physical stores, those still exist, paid advertisement, or other? And if it's other, let us know in the comments what you're doing. I know personally, I like to follow up with emails with our leads. So that's definitely a big one, is once we have someone come in, try to make as much personal contact as possible.
And it looks like those are just starting to come in. And so far we have 16 people. There we go, jumped again. So 56% saying that they routinely follow up with leads for forms, emails, calls. That's where their majority of this is sitting. I would say second is directly via e-commerce platform.
Okay. Yeah. So with leads, we're going to have the big question of how good are your salespeople, and how much do you know about their process? Is it opaque, or is the sales manager really difficult to talk to, or is there a CRM where you can actually see what is the conversion rate? Because you want to get a whole cloth, you want to get a sales close rate is what you're after here. You want to talk to them, you want to look at the data and find out, okay, let's say that they did follow up, because unfortunately 40% of leads that were submitted to legal sites got a follow-up of any kind last year. I was shocked, but unfortunately a lot of lead gen sites don't have a good follow-up method or system or sales process. So you really, as an SEO, do need to get involved in that process. If there are leads getting generated, you want to understand the rest of the business process and know, okay, what is the sales close rate out of the leads I'm generating for my site? How many are turning into sales? How many are buying that product or service? I'm not going to touch MQLs versus SQLs, because that's a whole conversation with a lot of jargon and lingo that doesn't apply to SEO. So let's just say if you're generating a lead off your site, how good is your conversion? If you are doing e-commerce, this might be a moment to consider your cart as your salesperson. So instead of looking at your transaction rate and saying, "Oh, I don't have salespeople," you kind of do, because you get that initial conversion of somebody as a lead interested in adding that product. But what's your abandoned cart? Most platforms, Shopify will represent that as a percentage. So you'll need to flip that on its head to get your sales close rate, and do the opposite. If it's 40%, it's 60% are closing, right? So take that number, that's going to work into our formula. And now you have to ask, what about money? How valuable is this product or service? So you might need to go back and segment your keyword universe to a specific product or service to get this honed in perfectly. If there's not a general value of how valuable that client is for you. You also want to consider, is this a SaaS product where they're paying, they may pay $5 a month, but they stay for 2 years? Is that new client, or is as a dental client, do they, once they sign up, are they usually going to come back for a year or two? Keep those things in mind when you're saying what your revenue is, and don't be so hasty to say, oh, well, it's a $99 teeth cleaning that we do every time. But do they come back? Do they keep doing it more? So keep that in mind when you're estimating the value that you're going to put in for your revenue. So we put this all together. So we're going to gather the pieces of the Triforce together and go on a journey, and we're going to gather that keyword list, get our search volumes, multiply that by organic click-through rate to get our potential traffic. Once we have our potential traffic, you're going to find that conversion rate, multiply traffic by conversion. That's going to give you the number of leads that you have. Now you need to multiply those leads by that lead close rate. That's going to give you your sales. Once you have that number of sales, then you're going to multiply that by your revenue. And that's going to give you a big picture. Each of your keywords on that list will now have a potential of traffic, leads, sales, and revenue. And then you're going to have like this big number at the end of it. So it's going to look something like this. This is a chart that I created that actually makes, it taps the entire list, but then I give it a little bit of reality. You're not going to rank for number one for every term or phrase. So this chart kind of says, what if half of these keywords performed in the top 3? Better is a quarter of these performed in the top 3, or an eighth. And then we look at the bottom of the page. 1/2 of these words are in the bottom 1 to 10, or only 1/8 get into it. So this kind of gives you a range, because when you're talking to somebody, when you're setting your expectations for your SEO campaign, you kind of control the levers, right? Of how successful, how much content are we going to go for? That's going to determine some aspects of your outcome. So you want to set some ranges and potentials for yourself. So this is where we start to add salt. Every single number in that variable, in that system, is variable. Search volume is general. The organic click-through rate may not match reality. The conversion rate could be plus or minus. Your sales could be better or worse. So let's start to add a little bit of salt. And this is where we kind of think about, okay, if I need to meet these objectives, you know, how much traffic does one of my pages generate? And I think you have some experience with this, right, Sabrina?
Yeah, of course. Anytime I'm looking at a new client and I'm taking a look to see strategy wise what's the best, first thing I do is generally pop their website into some third-party site and get a sense of what type of traffic is coming right now. What are they ranking for? Where are they really succeeding, and where are there some areas for opportunity? But yeah, if we are seeing their top page only get, I don't know, 100 visits per month, that really helps me temper my expectations to be able to explain to any of our customers that, hey, this might be more reasonable. So adding salt to forecasts, adding salt to expectations. We are in SEO. This is not an exact art or science. It's truly an art. So that puts me in the right headspace on what expectations our customers could potentially expect, or us as copy press as we grow our own marketing. So
yeah, I think it's important to know whether you're David or Goliath. You know, and also where are you performing? Because I worked with one customer, a very large financial site, NDA, I can't tell you who exactly it was, but 90% of their traffic was from Google Discover because of their opinion posts. They would put out 5 to 6 opinion posts every single day. But that type of content is a very serious drop off. Like they would spike up, and after a week, 0, 1 to 2 clicks because everything was in that Google Discover. So open up Search Console, click on Discover, and check and see, is most of my traffic coming from organic evergreen content, or is it coming from Google Discover? Is it flash in the pan, or is it building up? And keep that in mind too. Are you aiming to get more flash in the pan traffic, or are you aiming for something that you can build this up over time? And that's where you're going to want to take some steps to do some content analysis. We've done a previous webinar on exploring the quality of your existing content, seeing what is performing effectively, and what are some things that we want to make sure people tap into when it comes to content analysis, Sabrina?
Yeah, so optimization's near and dear to my heart. I am very much if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you have content that is generating some traffic, but not as much as it could, then maybe invest some of your resources in optimizing. But if you do an audit, and as Jeremy said, there's a previous webinar that actually the two of us did talking about this very subject. If you do that audit and you see there's actually a lot of untapped keywords. And so we talked earlier in the slides about doing SERP competitors and seeing if there is some type of keywords that you're not tapping into a customer base, then you might want to invest more money into net new content. So it is all just about taking a look holistically at what you're doing to try to determine the best way to result. Most people, it's a mix of both. You might need a ton of net new content, but don't ignore that older content. Because like you said, Jeremy, some evergreen content can continue to generate traffic for years. So there is a way to get the best bang for your buck, which is what I always focus on.
So all of this, you're going to, once you go through those steps to gather your keyword universe, get that traffic data, conversion, sales, and do the math to see what the potential is, the future is in your hands. You get to decide what's going to happen, what the potential is. Knowing that there is a volume of potential traffic and rankings and conversion and revenue can help you make a business argument. Most of you in this webinar are executing this on yourself, so you can kind of set your sights based off of those numbers and say, oh, hey, if I performed even moderately for this set of terms or phrases, I could make this much money. And that's a great carrot to put in front of yourself. So whether you decide to build links, create content, find out what technically is holding back your site, maybe you forgot to include pagination on your blog, have a bunch of orphans. There's lots of things you can do to improve your SEO outcome. But this will now give you a prediction, a forecast of what your potential is out there. So let's go ahead and open things up to a Q&A and answer any questions you guys have about this process.
Perfect. That was great stuff, you guys. Thank you very much for sharing. So first thing, just to address, you will absolutely get the replay of this after. So for anyone who asked that we didn't get a chance to answer back, please know that we'll send this your way. All right, so we've had some good questions. One of which is, what about local searches for keywords? How does this play into the selection when the volume isn't as high?
That's a great question. So you are going probably want to do a national or a bigger picture gathering and look and not define yourself immediately, because if you look for just Pestville or Cookeville pest control, then the sites that are targeting and performing, they might not have as many robust terms and phrases as a site that is in a larger metro area like Los Angeles or Dallas or New York, because each of those metros is going to have more people with more competition and more marketing money, right? So if you don't first filter down to your geography, but start with a larger keyword list of everything that's related to it, then that kind of gives you a qualitative scale of those terms and phrases. Pest control is going to be most popular, but bug catcher is one that's not used as much, and it's down here. You get narrowed down to your particular geo, and you're going to have a fraction of that traffic. And if you kind of calculate the difference between that head phrase and your geography, you can kind of reduce the other keywords and phrases by that same percentage. So you still want to go and explore that keyword universe. You can also do a lot of concatenation. So you take those terms and phrases and then concatenate them with your geographic terms and phrases and pull those specific volumes back, but based off of each of the specific geographic niches you're targeting.
Perfect. So let's see. Question came in. What is your biggest hurdle to overcome in predicting your ROI?
It's two things. One is making sure that you have the numbers. So you need to get your keyword universe and just get the numbers. That it is a big hurdle. You need to gather a lot of data, and you're making a lot of guesses. So try to eliminate and get as accurate as you can on your site's conversion rate. This is also where you're probably going to have to fix tracking on your site. I have worked with one client in my 15-year career that had conversion tracking to a T perfectly. You could tell me exactly how many people converted from which pages and which part of the site. It's almost always a mess. So that's the hardest part, is getting those numbers, talking to salespeople. If they're a separate team, getting them to give you an accurate number of how many people they are converting can be a challenge. So it's that in between of each of those values that is the hardest to do. And then leavening because once you get those numbers in, it's going to give you your whole keyword list. So if you were unrealistic in that original filtering step and you thought you could rank for Nikes, and that volume is like 10,000 a month and no other keyword is even close to it, that's going to skew you. So you want to go through it first, see what your rough draft of numbers comes out with, and then do your filtering and come back. Then refine your numbers again on conversion, on your sale close rate, and your revenue at the end of the day. And that's going to get you closer to it. But you're still, you know, you have to present it in ranges of potential, because you're not going to be number one for every single term. So at some point you have to choose which buckets to target, and that's going to determine the outcome of your real success. So kind of use it as a rough map of potential and not as a guiding light. It's a tarot reading, not like a time traveler from the future. So take it with a grain of salt, but is very useful still.
I'm going to go a slightly different route, but I agree with Jeremy. Those are all hurdles you have to come, but some of it's just the initial hurdle of wanting to do this. Like I said, I am not a math gal. That's not my bread and butter. That's not where I really feel comfortable. So having tools like the spreadsheet that Jeremy created makes this much more manageable. And having just a lot of resources and tools out there, people to go to, encourage you. And be able to hear results that how this helped other people, I think, is a huge way to motivate you. But like I said, my hurdle in this particularly is just starting. So I'm coming in as a presenter who this is really a challenge for me. It's not something that I sit with and feel 1,000% comfortable, but working with someone like Jeremy and utilizing those tools puts you in the right headspace to get over that initial hurdle. So.
Linda just said something in chat that I want to call out. It's very smart. Once you're done with that revenue number, maybe keep in mind that just because that product makes $1,000, that object could cost $800. So your profit margin could only be $200. Mm-hmm. So you also have to add maybe an extra column to call out what your predicted profit margin is. And then out of that profit margin, how much is your marketing allowed to consume? Because if you're spending, 100% of your potential, that profit to make that profit, that might be an Amazon model, but that doesn't fly for most businesses. So keep in mind that profitability. Maybe I should have added an extra column to the handout. Okay, maybe 2.0 next time.
I like Kaio says, don't forget to make the coffee. So
you're going to need a lot of coffee to get through the forecasting.
Awesome. All right, so let's see. Linda asks, once you identify your keywords, how long does it take to see results? And how often should they change, meaning your keywords? And then does that impact your results?
Great question. So it depends. Crap, I said it. So how quickly you can target your first, you now can bucket and choose what is going to be effective to target. And so you can decide whether that's best done by optimizing an existing piece of content that's ranking page 2 or page 3 and choose your path to that success. Is it optimizing that content or obtaining new links to get to that existing article or page, or a combination of both? Or is it a net new piece of content because you have something that might be relevant, but it's years old, it's out of date, and you build something new? I don't know how long it takes you to write a new piece of content. I can bang out an SEO article in 3 days max, and that's like a 2,000 word article. You might have a more refined process. You might have a longer cycle. It might take you a month to create a new piece of content, or 2 months if you're using outsource. I don't know your particulars. You do. So those are factors to reaching that success that are going to be question marks and variables. Should you come back to this forecast Later, absolutely. Like I said, there's seasonality that might impact it. You might want to revisit this forecast and hold it up in comparison to your current performance. If you know you're ranking for any of those terms or phrases, you could add a column and say, I'm ranking here, and here's how much traffic I'm getting in my current position. So you can add those volumes, add that data to your own forecast periodically. It depends on how much you love that Google Sheet or have another process. So how long it's going to take to meet that goal is something that you have to keep in mind your own process of completion. We have teams of writers at CopyPress, and we're helping hire subject matter experts to create and craft the content. So that means it's a little bit longer for any particular product or any particular page to get created. That's going to add time, but it's more thoroughly done, so it could perform better long term. Those are variables you'll have to factor in to executing on the forecast and working on predictions.
Yeah, of course. The avenue that you decide to take to promote and target those keywords that you've recognized are going to be the difference. So we talked about optimization versus net new, and Jeremy just mentioned, but if you already have a page that's been indexed and been crawled, you're going to have a different return rate than one that you're creating net new. If you're a brand new site and you don't have a ton of content and authority, it's going to be a lot different than if you're an established site. So there's a lot of pieces and factors that you kind of have to sit with yourself, audit, and determine to be as realistic as possible.
I had another slide and I was trying to work out how to say it exactly, but if you take your last, take your last month and look at your most productive content, take an average and let's say it this way, take your last 3 months data, take your blog posts, and then find the average or median performance for those articles to get a feeling of, okay, in general, this is how our content does and in a 3-month period versus, looking at your winners, what is our most successful content versus how do we do on average? And hopefully, using best practices, you'll be able to duplicate more of those successful ones, but it's not necessarily a guarantee. You got to start where you are.
All right. So Robin asked, how do you suggest that we use the ROI spreadsheet? Thanks, by the way, in sharing ROI to prospective clients. Is there an easy way to collect initial data to give them an idea?
Yeah. So obviously, if it's a prospective client, you're probably not going to have Search Console, but you do still have third-party tools, SEMrush, Ahrefs, our content analysis tool at CopyPress, and doing that keyword gap analysis. So you will be able to kind of fill in and create a somewhat keyword universe. Now, it's up to you how invested you are in trying to capture that lead and that prospect of how deep you go into that keyword universe. But you can grab a sizable piece for maybe one specific service or one specific product just to give them a taste. And then you're going to have to fudge. So use a reasonable conversion rate number, say 2.5 to 5% conversion rate. Guess at how many, 25% of their leads turn into sales, and then guess at the revenue for that particular product or service. So you can fill those in. There's a tab on that sheet that says organic click-through rate, and you can change the CTR, you can change the revenue per product and your conversion rate, your lead rate. If you do that and customize, you can kind of guess at what they are. You have to as a prospect, but you go into the battle with like, oh, hey, I saw for this, what looks like your most popular service, here's a range of potential traffic, clicks, and conversions. I base this off of some guesswork. So if you give me some better terms, I can come around with a version 2 and tighten this up and change those numbers and show you, oh, hey, this is some potential of our keyword range of what you could get. with our agency, we do X, Y, and Z. We write content. We build links to do this. Here's the potential. Again, this is a guesstimate, but it's better than coming in and saying SEO can send you to the moon. Can it really? Do you have any numbers? No, not really. Or just showing them, if you just take them to SEMrush, it's going to show them how they're performing now, but it doesn't tell them the bigger story of what you could do for them, right?
Okay. So we had another question come in from Lupita. She said, how can I know the % of estimated traffic by keyword by its position? You shared a table that represented that.
Yes. So that's the organic click-through rate. You can do a Google search for organic click-through rate, and Advanced Web Rankings has that study there. The sheet that I provided has an estimated organic click-through rate based off of informational. And one of the slides that I showed you earlier gives you the process to come up with your own organic CTR based off of your Google Search Console data. So those are 3 potential sources for you to get that list of potential click-through rates.
Okay. I think we probably have time to go through one more. Let's see. So when you're building so this one's from Jeff Wallace. When you are building your keyword lists, are you only targeting the highest volume keyword strings, or are you taking difficulty and potential volume into consideration?
I'd say your first step is gathering that universe, and then just ideating, talk to customer support, and get together as much of that keyword as that universe as possible first. And then the next step is to decide how you're going to filter that. There are platforms that you can use. SEMrush has a difficulty score to kind of say, oh, is this realistic for you to rank or not? So you can leaven those and maybe do an alternate suggestion that filters out the more difficult ones that are unlikely to rank. I think that filtration process is key to coming out with a realistic forecast, because again, you're not going to rank for Google Sheets, but there could be other secondary terms within that have a high difficulty rating through a third-party score, but if you make really good content, you could capture it. So you don't want to exclude targets just because the third-party score says it's difficult, but you also don't want to skew your results with too many high volume phrases that you really can't rank for. So it's a balancing act, and that's going to be custom to your specific niche, your specific industry, what is shooting for the moon and what is just, moon dreams.
Exactly, Jeremy. I completely agree. When we're looking at strategy for our clients, we're not just factoring in volume. We're not just factoring in keyword difficulty. It's also that where is the value going to fall with that keyword? So I use the example of our auto clients. ODB monitor, I think that's right, might have a really high difficulty rate, but if your site is that's what your authority is in, that's what you focus on, that's going to be a lot more attainable than just how does a car work. That might not be a valuable keyword, but it's definitely going to have a higher search volume. So really looking at that data, figuring out how it applies to yourself, how it applies to your client, and not just going the easy route and sorting by search volume and just targeting those. We found that is not typically the best way to get the results you're looking for. Certainly wouldn't be the best way to forecast your ROI for this either.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're out of questions, but the chat has been full of thank yous, and this was so helpful. And so I want to thank Jeremy and Sabrina for coming on, to SEJ webinars, because we love having CopyPress on here. You guys always bring a wealth of information with you, but you're letting people take this template with them today. You've showed them how to use it. So super helpful. We will make sure that, that goes out in the recap as well. So you'll get the recording, you'll get the slides, and you'll get the resources. So with that, Jeremy, Sabrina, tell the people where to find you.
Of course. Best way to find me, if you go to copypress.com, anytime you schedule a call, you're going to get my face on the other end. You can also reach me by my email, which is SHIPPS, so SHIPS, @copypress.com. Jeremy, I know he's got all the socials. So.
I'm on Twitter all the time. Jeremy Rivera SEO on Twitter. I'm on Mastodon at SEO Arcade. And there is a tool out there called SEOarcade.com that does this process. You just input your keyword and it will do the forecasting for you. So if you don't want to mess around with the sheet, you want it to gather the keywords for you, there is a tool out there that does the forecasting for you automatically.
Automagically. I love it. I don't know if you guys see the hearts just like going up. Everybody is loving this. So thank you guys. Thank you all for being here with us. Thank you for joining us. We will see you on the next SEJ webinar. Hope you all have a great day. Bye, Jeremy. Bye, Sabrina. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Heather. Bye. Thanks, everyone.